Your story is waiting for you today. Your story has something new to say. But your story will only come out to play when you're alone. Alone. Alone in a room with invisible people.
The following episode may contain swearing. Alone in a Room with Invisible People is brought to you by hollyswritingclasses.com. Hi, I'm Rebecca Galardo, and I'm the host of Alone in a Room with Invisible People. I'm here with author and teacher Holly Lisle, and today's topic is setting and world building. But before we get into the topic, just like most days, we're going to go ahead and tell you about what we've been doing. So why don't you take it away?
Well, I'm not going to use any of my bad words on last week's writing, but oh my God. Well, actually, part of it was pretty good because I finished up the short stories class. I finished lesson 8,
yeah.
So that's done now. So that was awesome. But The Owner's Tale, I went back through and I was reading more of the backstory from Hunting the Corrigan's Blood because something was just kind of in the back of my mind that I had missed a little detail in the character who is the owner, and it turned out I had missed everything. So I ended up throwing away about 3,000 words and writing about the same number. I came up with a net gain for the week of 76 words.
Oh my God. I
wanted to cry. But I do have the backstory fixed now. So I don't have errors anymore, and that was a big deal. How about you?
I got really excited and I plotted out a couple of stories of flash fiction for Fulton Hills. I'm not sure if I want to do flash fiction for Wanda Lucia. I've got the romances. It's like crocheting or knitting or art or anything. Writing is the same. You have so many whips, so many, work in progress pieces.
Yes.
It's just so many works that you want to finish. And yeah, so this week I got some story ideas down. I worked a little bit more on one of the ghost stories in the anthology. So nice. I'm hoping to have that finished and up for October. That's my goal for those. There was something else that I did as well. Oh yeah, I started trying to draw one of my glass house characters.
Cool.
Yeah, I kind of want to put out a whole bunch of art for those. I want to have each of the characters drawn. I want to have some of the creepier things done. I want to have the house drawn.
So I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah. All right. So that was my week. So without any, is there anything else you want to mention before we go ahead and get right in? Yeah, no.
It was a rough week.
Just a side note to anybody listening, this is one of my mom's favorite topics, world building. So I'm going to try to keep her at about an hour, but I don't know how well I can contain the beast. So
yeah, well, this is my nerd love. This was the thing that got me into writing fiction in the first place, was all of the amazing worlds that authors of science fiction and fantasy had come up with. And I wanted to move into them and live in them and explore them. And I realized that I could do that with my own stuff. And this was what got me into writing fiction, was world building.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to try to keep it at the same time length as others. Yes. We can always do another world building episode if you guys have any questions. Again, leave them on the blog. We can get to them. We will get to them eventually, but remember, it's not an immediate response thing for most of these because we have to decide whether or not we can make it another episode or something.
Right.
So let's go ahead and get right into world building. So why does the story's world matter? Why do worlds matter at all?
It seems kind of counterintuitive. People want to think, hey, I'll come up with these characters and I'll come up with this conflict. And they start writing, and they're writing in thin air. And you read through and you'll have talking heads. They're not any place. They're not settled inside of a town or a city or a room, or there are no visuals. And we are physical creatures. We are constantly aware of our surroundings. If we are not, we don't survive. We are shaped by our environment. And so are characters in fiction. If they don't have an environment, and if you don't know what that environment is, then they exist in nothing and they become nothing. It's if you have it's generally it's the last thing that most writers think about is the world. But if you have two characters set in New York City, and you have two characters set in a tiny little town in the foothills or in the mountains in West Virginia, those two people, those two characters are going to be different. They are going to, the stories that you can tell are going to be different. The kinds of conflicts you can have are going to be different. Even if it's a romance in a small town, it's going to run differently than a romance in a big city. And not just because, in the big city there are taxis and buses, and in the small town people walk to each other's houses. It's because the entire world is different.
Yeah, what they can do, what they think about, how they react to each other, how they think about their days, everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Their priorities, their passions. You can't be a fan. Well, I mean, you can be a fan of the Met in a little town in West Virginia, but you can't just go to the Met and listen to the opera. It's so.
Yeah, and of course I'm thinking of the Buffalo Bills. I'm thinking about how Tony and I are fans, but how you can't go to training camp, how you can't run into the players at different places, or when the players do their free meet and greet someplace, or when they go and they support their charities or something, that you can show up and be a part of that. So it is a completely different experience depending on where you live.
Right. So in spite of the fact that most people come up with a story idea and come up with characters first, the thing you have to know before you start writing is, what is my world?
I wonder how many people actually have a set. Like, you always come up with the world first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And me, I'm all over the place.
Yeah. I am not as lunatic about it as I was originally.
Yeah.
When I very first got started, I would draw a world map. I would draw town maps. I would then build out cultures and religions and languages. And after I had all of those things, then I'd start getting some ideas for people who might live there. And I did this for Arhel, Secret Texts, Glenraven.
Didn't you show up with, I don't know if this was a D&D thing or...
Oh, no, this was our first writers group.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I got in on the ground floor of a brand new writers group, showed up for the first meeting, and the concept, well, no, it was the second meeting, because the first meeting we just talked about what we wanted to do, and the second meeting we were supposed to bring stuff for a world that we could write in together, because we were going to do a shared world. So I built a world. And by God, I built a world. It had like about 150 pages of handouts, which I printed off one copy for each member. And I came in with this armload of stuff and went ka-chunk on the table that we were sharing in the little library meeting room, and or the little store meeting room. I forget where we met, and everybody went.
Yeah. So
Like,
how
there was-
long between the first meeting and that meeting was it a month? Was it
It was 2
a couple
weeks.
of weeks? Good Lord.
It was 2 weeks.
150 pages worth of world building material for them to read. Not necessarily that you created, which might have been more.
Yeah, and that was single spaced and typed. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yes, and it was excessive. But that world turned into settled space.
Oh, nice. So that was your Katie Drake and
Yeah.
Longview and nice.
Yes, I mean the stuff that I built in that world, it just stuck in the back of my head. I lost the notes, but I knew the concept of the whole thing, which was humanity gets off of Earth, finds a way to go to different different solar systems in our universe, and to make the travel fast. And it just hung there for years and years until finally Bain said, "Oh yeah, you can write a little bit of science fiction," and I did Hunting the Corrigan's Blood, and it was all just there, still in the back of my head, because I had built the crap out of that world.
So you're saying, hold on. So you're basically saying that the world affects the story, and if you don't have a world with some kind of personality, then basically you don't have an in-depth enough story.
Right. You in a well-developed world, the world will feed your story's conflicts. This is something that we kind of touched on with you talking about Fulton Hills, where you got to know some of your people, but in this world that you were developing, the world itself was throwing ideas at you for problems that you could put in front of them. And a well-developed world will do this. A well-developed world, you'll start walking around in the streets in your head, or in my Minecraft maps, because nerd alert here, big nerd alert. I have built full-scale models of Bailey's Irish Space Station. And I mean, this is full scale. You can get in, walk around inside the buildings, go up and down the elevators, get inside the spaceships, go into all the rooms, see all the crap that's in the spaceships, life-sized.
Yeah, and it's there. It is incredibly detailed. If you happen to have Minecraft, if your kids happen to have Minecraft on the computer, anything like that, it is worth maybe going on YouTube and watching a very basic Minecraft tutorial, so you know how to move and stuff like that, and then downloading Holly's Minecraft maps, and she's always adding to them, because these are amazing. They're in depth, and this is something that she has been doing for years and years and years, and she's still doing now. It manages to pull stories. Squick Stories, as a matter of fact, was built from just her playing around in her world, building things. And what, you left yourself a note or something?
Yeah.
I don't remember the story.
Yeah, I had this little sign down on the bottom that said "No more Squick studies," and I had because when you're in this sort of flow where you're developing a world and you are sliding into the world and trying to establish what's going on, up on the top it has the people who are doing genetic engineering, which is what Squick Studies is about. They're lunatics. They love the work. They live there. They have to be told to go home. There are showers. They are required to take a shower a day because they would forget, because they get so involved in what they're doing. They're so passionate about it that they just want to do more of what they're doing. And down on the bottom, in the basement where they have all of their labs, there's this little sign on there, "No more Squick Studies." And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I said, what the fuck is a Squick study? And then it just hung there, and it hung there for not hunting the Corrigan's blood, but for War Paint, for all of the Longview stories. And all of a sudden, I went, oh God, I know what squick studies are. And there was a story right there that this was this conflict with people who were doing this experimentation with genetic engineering, doing amoeboid studies, and they tried to transform themselves, and it did not work out well.
Yeah, so it's any method of world building is not wrong. I'm assuming it's just there's a certain amount where you have to pull yourself back from doing too much because you still want to write the stories.
Right.
But
right.
This is something that video game makers do, and they have concept artists that create the world studies or the worlds that they've built, and it's just fascinating.
It really helps if you can walk around inside your building, if you can walk around inside your town, or I've done this with a number of different worlds. I did a demo world for the Worldbuilding Clinic, where it has teleportation devices and this little place in South Florida and this other place that's not South Florida and a sapient house and some different stuff that I built this map specifically to show the different elements of world building. But what you are looking for with a world is for the world to start telling you stories, for it to start showing you the scary alley where your mind says, oh God, that's a dead end. Why is that a dead end? What happened back there? Something bad happened back there, didn't it?
That's funny that you say that, because I had an alley actually tell me there was a story there, and it turned into an entire book's plot in Fulton Hills. One of my, I guess paranormal. It's more paranormal than romance, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens, and it's people who are fighting the conflict argument. Where you are looking for two people arguing with each other as the conflict in your story, to get away from this and to never fall victim to the conflict argument again. You start building a world, and it doesn't have to be a big world. You can build a world in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Wanda Lucia, I barely did any world building for, but it feels like a real town.
It became very in-depth as you wrote it, because your subconscious mind will step into whatever cool toys you give it and start building with them and start playing and moving things out and stretching and expanding and looking into little corners and asking questions. And asking questions is the big deal. It really is. You know, what happened here? Why? Who did it? If your story could happen anywhere, it's broken. If there is no sense of place in the story you're telling, you're doing it wrong.
And that's not saying that if your romance could happen anywhere, that it's, I mean, any story can, it's weird. A lot of stories can happen in different places, but it completely changes the story.
Sure.
And that's the whole point, is that you have to be able, and I've read a bunch of romances where you don't get a feel for the place, you don't get a feel for, I think people stay too much within the characters and their drama without any interaction with the world, and I think that's why a lot of them kind of fail, because you're not in this time and place. A lot of people, when they read, they want to get lost in the book, and part of that is getting lost in the world.
Right. That's my first sale, Fire in the Mist. I found out that it was the point where Faya was walking out of town, and she had her staff with her. She had her 2 dogs, Chip, Chirp, Chirp, and Huss. She had her sheep, and she was taking the sheep up to the mountains or up into the highlands to graze for the summer. And she was singing this song. And it was the name of the song was Lady Sends the Sunshine or something like that, which, I had written out as the poetry because, me, nerd. But she had modified the words, and it was no more spinning, no more dying, sheep must to the uplands go, and no damn dying. That was it, because she was really happy to be getting out of town. That right there was what sold the book for me to the publisher, Jim Bain. He said that was the point where I knew, right there. And that's like the second scene, I think, in the story, where she is just happy to be getting out of town. She's taking the sheep, she's gone, she's free, and everybody else in town is doing all the women's work, and she is going to the hills with the dogs and the sheep and a couple of guys who are going to be coming up later.
Yeah, her special friends.
Her special friends, yes.
Yeah, that's I loved. Oh, I don't want to get lost in your story or anything, but yeah, that it captures you right away. Fire in the Mist was, and I've actually only just gotten to the point where Medwin's song has just met the librarian, because I take Fire in the Mist with me. It's just in my purse until I finish it, and because I don't have very much time to read. But I read that whenever I'm waiting on Tony or anything else like that, and it's just every character has. It's weird to say that your first book is a great study in how to write world or how to write character, and there's so many different worlds too, because Fea's world is very different from the city with the sages and the mages. So right. It's just I think it's a brilliant book. I mean, I know that it's your first book, and now you kind of get all squirmy about whatever mistakes you see. But I just love that book.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really a nice point you made there, that the conflict of that story is this country girl brought to a big city, this girl who has not even been taught how to read, but who has really strong magical power, is dumped into this university of young women who are mostly mage pretenders. They have a tiny little bit of magical ability. Fea cooks a village accidentally. So she's a big power, and every single thing comes from that scene where she is going up to the mountains. Everything starts there and ties into all of that. And it is because that world was real in my head that I was able to do that, to find those conflicts between stuff that just happened. I was not at all aware of how to plot when I wrote that first book. I had no idea about doing scene cards, making sure that scenes had the right stuff in them. I had gotten pretty good, however, at revision. And the world there it gave me my plotting, because every time I would think, well, now something needs to happen, some element of the world would pop up, like these giant otter things, or the fact that I drew a map and I made it with a compass, and then I drew a straight line down the middle, and my right brain said, what's the straight line for? That's a wall. Why is there a wall? Because the male magicians and the female magicians have been at war with each other for 500 years in the same city. And I went, ooh.
Well, the other thing too was that proper world building will give you more in the event where your writing comes in under, because you told me that with Fire in the Mist, you sold the book, but when you signed the contract, you saw that it was 90,000 words, and you had 80 or 70,000?
70. I had 70,000 words, and the contract when it came in said 90,000 words, and I was an utter noob. So I looked at this and went, okay, well, they bought my book, but they want it to be 90,000 words. Okay, I will add 20,000 words. So I went back through and I added a scene from the point of view of a cat. And that was Flynn. And I added a couple of other scenes that developed conflict inside of the world that I hadn't really fully developed the first time. And as I read through it, I was thinking, okay, well, this part of the world needs a little bit more here, and this part of the world could use a little bit more here, where there's a new conflict, and let's add that in and let's tie it all together. And then I sent the revised manuscript to Tony, and that's Tony Weisskopf, who was my editor at the time. And I said, oh, okay, and I added the 20,000 words you asked for. And she went, oh, God, no, because she thought I'd padded.
Yeah.
And then she read through it, and she said, no, this is really better. So
we'll have to go through padding versus adding
yes.
in another episode.
Oh, yeah,
that's
a
an
big
important
deal.
one.
It is.
So how would somebody start with Worldbuilding? Let's just say that somebody, has written before, and they can plot, and they understand what you mean by some conflict of some sort that isn't just arguing. How would somebody go into this and say, okay, well, I want to build a world. Maybe it's not, an in-depth 150-page printout that they can hand to their writer friends.
We're going to assume that it won't be.
Yes. So you said something about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, actually, you have, and please don't think that we're going to do downloads every week, because we're not. But
God,
I do
no.
have a download for you on this. It is a 5-minute How to Build a World workshop where you go in and you start with a question. Your right brain asks you a question, and you start writing answers to it. And I can't really describe the workshop to you, because if I do, it's going to filter my results into your results, and
Yeah.
I want to avoid that. So, just go ahead, go to the site, grab the download.
We'll have it in the show notes then.
Right, it'll be in the show notes, and you'll be able to get it from our download page. But I can do a quick demo here with you with Rebecca, where she can ask me a question. Any sort, who, what, when, where, why, or how. Any one of those can do. So just any sort of question just off the top of your head that begins with one of those words.
What is the orange glow coming from?
Beautiful. Beautiful. What is the orange glow coming from? Okay. And I listen to my right brain, and my right brain says fire. There is a fire somewhere. Okay, where is there a fire? My right brain says, okay, this is a world lit only by fire. This is a primitive society. There is an orange glow. Somebody just discovered how to build fire. Okay, so then we're way back in history, or we're in an alternate universe or an alternate world.
Post-apocalyptic, maybe.
Post-apocalyptic, yeah, that's true. Okay, could be a world lit only by fire after people did something really stupid. But I'm going to go back earlier. I'm going to go to primitive culture. Okay, and then I'm going to say that the world lit only by fire is about to be visited by superior beings, which gives me aliens and humanity and first contact, and there's your story.
Nice.
And that wasn't even 5 minutes.
No, that was like 30 seconds, but it gives you, there's already a lot of conflict built in there.
Yes.
Because you're really limiting the characters, because if it's a world lit only by fire, that means more than just where they only get their light from fire.
Right.
That
is their highest level of technology, is how to build a fire.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, you can start building an entire world with just a question, with just an image in your head.
Exactly. And that for me, that is where all of my worlds have started. Okay, let me give you an example. Arhel. Arhel started out with that circular map, with sitting there on the couch with a compass and a pen and making circles, and then making little straight lines inside, and then drawing that line down the middle. And the line down the middle was the genesis of 3 novels. The line straight down the middle of a circle. Because it was, oh my God, this is men versus women. But this is men with magical power versus women with magical power in a closed and tight society in which the genders have been lying about and to each other for 500 years about something that went really, really wrong 500 years ago.
That's funny because another one of your stories, The Secret Text, also came from circles.
Oh God. Okay.
I still have that map somewhere because you gave it to me.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I still have that thing.
Do you? Okay, because the secret texts.
The magical bombs.
Oh God, that's right. That was, yes. But I had drawn out this map. Big map for, and this was Diplomacy of Wolves, Vengeance of Dragons, and Courage of Falcons. A really one of, I consider some of my best work. And I had done this gorgeous pencil map of several of continents, of oceans. I had everything all lined out, and it just wasn't clicking for me. So I took a compass and I just started drawing circles randomly.
I thought the cat jumped up and spilled something on there. Wasn't it?
I don't know. I know that the cat came over and bit the map while I was working on it, and it still has his little teeth in it. The little teeth marks right there where he...
Maybe that was it.
Yes, it was cat approved because he came over and bit a hole in my map while I was drawing it. But no, the compass things, I was just randomly drawing circles on there, and I was making them different sizes. I had no idea, but I was drawing them on top of an existing map. And I suddenly, my mind said, oh, those are old scars from a war. 1,000 years earlier, those are pockmarks from a magical war. And the magic that got loose was, it changed people genetically. It made them not just people anymore because they were all humans. And after this, there are all of these different warped and twisted species. And from that, I got the main character, who is kind of a sort of a werewolf. And people in her society, if they find out what she is, she's highborn, but if they find out what she is, they will have her ripped apart in the town square by 4 horses running in 4 different directions to make sure that she is dead and stays dead. And this sort of species diversity has led to all kinds of wars and all kinds of horrific actions, and that, yeah, again, was from a compass and just drawing circles and thinking, what are these, why are they here?
And if you haven't seen that, we will link that in the show notes as well. I'll make sure, because she has a copy of it up on her blog.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it's funny because I was just thinking about the story that I'm giving away, the ghost story part of the anthology. Right. And I was thinking that is in Fulton Hills. And then my left brain was like, yeah, but it could happen anywhere. And I was like, oh no, well then I failed. And then I realized it couldn't happen anywhere. It had to happen in that house. So world building does not necessarily mean an entire universe, an entire town. It can just be a house.
Right. World building is a process of setting specific limitations on what can happen in your story. If anything can happen, nothing matters.
Yeah.
Right. So you are setting limitations when you start asking yourself questions about your world, when you start defining what can happen inside of this world. And again, and the example that I got in the worksheet is really funny because my brain decided to be a smartass. And I don't want to go into details because, again, that will color your responses to your own world if you know what mine is first. But you can see my brain messing with me because my right brain and I have a very, very odd relationship in which we fight each other all the time.
That sounds like me and my husband. It's not necessarily fighting all the time, but he intentionally antagonizes me. He intentionally annoys me and bothers me and pokes me, and you're like, I don't understand that relationship. He's my little bully.
And my right brain is that. It's like, okay, oh, you wanted a serious answer. Well, work with that. Let's see what you can make of that. Because, haha. And it turned out to be a really compelling idea, but it came from the most ridiculous place imaginable. And sometimes you just want to smack yourself on the right side of your head. Like, I know you're in there. Whack.
I think that's going to make a lot of people feel better, because I think a lot of muses can get antagonistic at times, and can be dicks, just like the left brain.
Yes. Well, yes. Both sides of your brain will mess with you. And your left side is always criticizing you, but your right side is messing with you. Your right side is going, okay, I want to play, and you are the only person I can play with, and you have been boring me. So here,
I was going to say, maybe your muse got bored with you. Maybe your muse is tired of you.
Yeah, and it's got no place else to go. It's stuck with you. So give it something. Feed it. Feed the muse.
Yeah, I remember creating Fulton Hills the first time. I don't remember exactly all of the details, but I do remember that I was really into researching cults and the mindset of the cults and stuff like that. And I was also working at Wings Plus, which was a restaurant in Oakland Park in Florida. And I was working there. And I was I was doing something, serving one of the regulars at the bar. And I just remember seeing he had a ring that I hadn't noticed before. And I don't even remember what it looked like. But at the time, when you're writing a whole lot too, your mind picks up on everything and anything. Little details can sometimes give you an entire world. And that basically was what it kind of was. It was just an odd looking ring. And immediately, because I had been researching about cults and serial killers and stuff, I was like, it pulled me into the thought of, he's a cult member. He sacrifices human beings. Everybody in that cult, has specific powers. They draw the power from the land. The land is really rich with power. There's something wrong with the land, and bam.
Yes.
That was it.
Oh God. Yeah. When you start actually building your worlds, everything and everyone becomes fodder.
Oh,
it
yeah.
all starts feeding in. You'll notice somebody who walks funny, and your brain will say, remember that. Remember that walk. You'll see someone who is being a jerk, and your brain will go, oh God, I can so use that, and I want to. It will it will have you sitting in a Starbucks, back when I was still drinking Starbucks coffee, where I was just listening to these two people talking, and this guy was talking about doing fundraising for a hospital in which he dressed up as a clown and visited the kids. And oh God, because clowns, no. And I'm thinking serial killer. because that's where clowns visiting hospital, children's ward, this is bad. Just my, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and my skin crawled. And I'm sure he was a very nice guy, but not in my world, he wasn't.
Yeah, John Wayne Gacy and Pogo the Clown really, really kind of tainted clowns for a lot of people. I remember not liking them when I was younger, before I even knew what a serial killer was. But I know that especially for a lot of people who were adults when John Wayne Gacy was exposed, and all of the boys that were, underneath his floorboards and stuff, when all of that came out.
Yeah,
I know a
some
lot of
scary
them
shit.
now have dubious feelings regarding certain... Ugh, I don't even like the word clown. Yeah. So, but
Yes.
it does exactly what you're saying. And this is why I think that it's important. I'm a hermit. I'm a homebody. I'm a Cancer. I'm a full homebody. I am perfectly happy to stay at home. In fact, my husband has to kind of drag me out of the house to go to certain functions and stuff. I'm not a huge, like, I'm good with people. I like people. I can meet them and talk to them and have no problems. I had a little bit of social anxiety when I was going through, certain levels of depression and frustration over life situations that we all have. But I'm actually pretty good with people. I just prefer to be at home. So it's just me, Tony, my animals, maybe a select few friends. But when I go out, I always get ideas. Always. There is never a time when I don't have a pen and paper. Because thanks to smartphones now, and I have one of the notes. You have a little pen on there, and you have the S Note app, so you can write down stuff at all times. But I've always got a pen and paper because I'm always hearing something. I'm always and my world is very. I guess this is anybody's world. The real life and real world is very rich with details. And for writers, I think we have more of an open mind. We have more of the ability to see the little things that a lot of people don't. And that's the same thing for creatives. All creatives have this ability. And she's not friends with her anymore so much, but one of my older friends was was always amazed, because this was one of the points of time where the circumstances were a little bit more difficult for us. This was right after Tony's accident, so we were way more homebound than normal. And we had visitors, and one of the visitors was a good friend of mine, and she was always telling me what would happen at her day. She liked to talk about her day a lot, and I was constantly coming up with ideas, and I was constantly writing these ideas as stories and sending them to her, and she thought it was hilarious that literally every time that we talked and she told me, about her day, I came up with another story. It was it was to the point where she was just. I don't remember exactly what she said, but the next day she came in, she's like, I guess it's time for you to create another story because I had a heck of a day. Or something like that. But it's important for writers to get out, or if getting out is more difficult, read something you wouldn't normally read. Read something that's nonfiction. Go on websites you wouldn't normally go on. YouTube, go to the Wikipedia random page, because they've got that option that you can hit random and it gives you a random page. Or go to YouTube and type in something weird, because it might not give you an idea the first time, but it's good to expand your mind and to see all of these different things that are out there, because you have no idea how you can tie that into something that fascinates you, or tie that or create something entirely different out of what you're reading or watching or seeing.
Right.
I've written so many different kinds of short stories, and I mean, I've been working on Fulton Hills for almost 17 years now. And I obviously have the capacity to finish things. I finished several novels, and this is the first one I finally finished with revision and everything. I've now submitted. I've finished tons of stories, fan fiction and original. So I have the ability to finish things. It's just, it feels like maybe Fulton Hills is still growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Oh, and
my
it
writing
will.
ability has to match how amazing Fulton Hills is too.
Yeah, that's there you can build worlds that are ahead of where your writing is. I have one that has been sitting on my hard drive for years now, where I developed this world, this concept based on archaeology and Minoan history, which we know absolutely squat about the Minoans. We have some of their writing which nobody has managed to translate. We have some pictures of them where they had some pretty classy dressed up fashion sense, but they were the folks who came up with the underbody corset with the boobs out. That was their fashion sense, and full skirts. They looked kind of 18th century French or 18th century British, the elites, except for the whole boobs are just right out there in the open thing, this absence of history that we have with these really interesting little snippets that have come to us over time really dug into my head, and I came up with an archaeological dig in one of the Indian sites in Ohio, where I'm originally from, and they found a village and they were digging on the village, and it was just a really lame dig and they weren't going to be able to save it. And then they went down deeper, and underneath that there were Minoan artifacts, and then Minoan artifacts never made it to the New World. That just never, it didn't happen. So, but they were in the geological layer, they were in the strata. How did they get there? Why were they there? And this, oh my God, it hit me, and it still eats at me. I have got to write this book. And I've taken several runs at it, and I'm not ready yet.
See, I can't imagine you not being ready, because I've read Talon, and I just think that was absolutely amazing, But it's funny because that's it's weird to hear you say that you're not ready, and at the same time it's also comforting, because I feel I'm not ready for the one big book that I want to write. I'm using your terminology from How to Write a Series, the one big book,
Right.
Which is the zombie series. But I also feel like maybe I'm just starting to get ready to dip my toes into Fulton Hills because of the different worlds that I'm doing. I'm doing the Glass House series, which is in Standing River next to Fulton Hills. So I feel like I'm working my way up to that.
Yeah.
But I know that it's got to be comforting for other people too, to realize that your writing will always grow, and that if you're not ready for something now, you keep building it on the side.
Right.
But you work on other things. That's the other thing too, is that a lot of people they're like, well, I'm not ready, but they don't work on writing in the meantime. And it's the same thing with art. Well, I want to do this portrait of this person, but I'm not ready yet. And then they never sketch, or they don't draw daily, or they don't paint, or you're never going to be ready if you don't practice. If you don't
you got to do a lot of writing. You have to do a lot of. I figure at this point I've done more than 10 million words of published work. That's fiction and nonfiction, but that's a lot of writing. A lot.
Yeah, that is.
And I am still learning. I am still getting better. I am still exploring things that I am discovering, and techniques that I am inventing to allow me to do the things that I want to do. And that there is so much to writing that I will never run out. I will never stop learning, because there is always going to be something else. And that's anyone, but the only way you can learn is if you get your butt in the chair and you start writing stuff that sucks, and figuring out why it sucks and fixing that, and then writing the next thing. And anybody, seriously, anybody, if you can read, you can learn to write. And if you are willing to work at it, you can learn to write well.
And if you love to read.
Oh, yeah, if you love to read.
Yeah,
that
because
really
there's a big
helps.
difference. There's a lot of people who don't like to read. It's funny. You mentioned this before. People who come with you, I got this amazing idea. Really great, totally unique. Nobody's done it before. It's the great American novel in space. It's some BS. I don't know. There's always something that somebody thinks is unique. And my first question immediately, before they even finish, is, do you like to read? And 99.9% of the time, it's either no or I don't have time. Mm-hmm. When was the last time you read a book? I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that.
Right.
So it's like not going to happen. It's
No.
Yeah, your idea is really unique. Go talk to somebody else. But it's like you have to read as well in order to write. And it's it's just, you would think that would be a standard understood thing, but it really isn't.
But it isn't. No, it isn't. And you would think that people who want to write a book would be passionate about reading books, because those of us, my mom taught me to read when I was 4. And I had my first adult library card when I was 7, and was allowed to walk to the library and take home any books I wanted. And I remember taking home this big, fat Alfred Hitchcock book because I liked the cover, and it was too scary, so I didn't read it. But reading was my salvation. Reading was the thing that let me know that I was okay as a human being. It let me know that the world outside was different than the tiny little world that I was familiar with. It gave me views of possibilities, of things that could be. And if you are not reading, and reading broadly and deeply, and in fiction and nonfiction, and asking questions, then building up this entire list in your mind of all of the stuff that you don't know, and start adding layers of things that you do know based on what you've read, you're going to have a very difficult time writing. Reading is where you start.
And anybody reading your stuff is going to have an even more difficult time reading what you've written.
Yes. This is writing is an investment in your life. It is an investment in your ability to be more human. And world building is understanding where you fit in humanity, and then bringing that understanding of where you as a human being fit into your story. And that is the quintessential piece of necessary truth that you have. This is who I am in the world, and this is what I bring to my fiction. And my fiction is all over the place, but there are specific values that all of my stories have. And even my early stuff, where I was somewhat different than I am now, and had a different understanding of the universe than I have now, those core human values are still in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you felt that Fire in the Mist was different ideologically
yes
than you have now. But I think at the very root of it, there is the same idea in that there is in much of your other stuff.
Right. The one of the things I had to read through it the other day. I was looking for something, and I don't even remember what I was looking for now, but I found it. But the theme of that particular story, of my first novel, was that you can't lie about history and then expect the future to not eat you alive. And this group of men and this group of women had divided themselves up into enemy camps and lied their asses off about each other and about their history and about how they ended up where they are. And history came back and ate them. And that is a truth from the real world today, is, people, you cannot be on one side of a fence and expect the other side of the fence not to eat you alive. You have to be human together.
Yeah, I like that.
And that was my story back then. That was, 20 some years ago.
I think that if somebody else would set a task for themselves every day, I'm going to read one article of something completely different, or I'm going to, pick up a magazine at the store while I'm standing there waiting for my groceries, waiting to get my chance to ring up my groceries. Pick up one of those really bizarre magazines, the
Yes.
the tabloids with the aliens and all that stuff. Pick it up and read one of the stories in there. I mean, really just do something you wouldn't normally read. That's something I would normally read. In fact, I would actually have a subscription to them if they weren't so damn expensive. But pick up something that will get you away as well from the same stuff that you're dealing with every single day. If you have the same coworkers with the same damn stories that you hear every single week or every single day, you hear the same complaints, you have the same routine, you need to break your mind out of that as well and give yourself a splash. Just kind of throw cold water on your muse and wake it up and put yourself into a different state of mind, even if just for a few minutes, because that can give you an idea for an entire world.
Yes.
Okay, so looking at all the ideas, and let's say that you have a really cool idea for a world and you're working. What kind of ideas can you get from your world building?
Okay, you can get events. For example, the magical shower, the magical bombardment that changed the world of the secret text. You can get the different kinds of people. For example, from the secret texts again, you can get the people who shift into werewolves. You can get the people who have become these strange little six-legged creatures. You get all of these different kinds of people who started out human and who were modified by the what's called the Rewa, the backlash from this explosion of magical power that just devastated a really, really civilized world. You can get different kinds of conflict, like why is the alley there? What happens in the alley? What happened in the alley 100 years ago? What happened in the alley 15 minutes ago? Is there something in the alley that ties the past to the present? And the more you dig into this, the more different, not just different conflicts, but different specific kinds of conflict you get. You can get the immersion of yourself into the story you're telling, where you become invested in the world and you start seeing portions of your personality being brought to life in the kind of world you're building. The settled space is very me. It's,
yeah, you come up with ideas all over the place for settled space.
Oh my God. Yeah, that thing, it is a generator of immense proportions. Seriously, you can download the maps from my website. We will have a little link for you. If you have Minecraft, you can get the most recent build, and I update them from time to time as, I have idea generators in there where I take little signs in Minecraft and I ask myself questions. And you can walk through rooms and you will find where I have asked myself a bunch of questions and haven't written the story yet because, well, it's sitting there and waiting and perking while I'm working on other things. But then you get the immersion of the reader, because if you are invested in the world and if this world is real and tangible and something passionate for you, then the reader is going to feel that. They are going to pick it up, and they are going to be with that girl who's singing her song as she is walking down the road, spinning her stick, happy to get out of town, grateful not to be stuck with the weaving and the spinning and the sewing and the dyeing. Just thrilled to be out of town for the summer and hanging out with the sheep up in the hills and having a little bit of fun with her friends. And this, you have to be there first before a reader will buy into your story and fall into it and live into it and believe it as real. You have to be there first. And that takes a depth of investment in just your tiny little place. You could, seriously, when you do the workshop, you will see tiny, tiny, tiny detail can give you a massive story. And it will feel real because you got that detail right. But so immersion for its possible events, kinds of people, kinds of conflict, your immersion and your reader's immersion is what comes out of world building and what you need, what you get from a well thought out and well defined place.
I look at things, like I don't want to call out any names of books that were not done well.
Right. No, I don't want to crap on anybody else's work.
But I can say for a fact that if you read something like The Ruins, which I heard they made a movie about, I haven't seen it. I don't know if it's in post-production, if it's already been out or anything. I just remember Mark suggesting years and years and years ago that I read The Ruins. It's basically a story about these people that are traveling that get stuck on a hill. It's the ruins, but the plants are, I guess, kind of evil. If you had told me, if you had just laid out what it was about, the story, what the story was about, I would have never read it. And I think that that would have been a huge loss, because when you read it, it is fascinating. You get sucked into it, and it's mainly character driven, but it affected me so much that when I was done with it, I read it in like a day or two. I walking around outside, because I used to run just run basically a mile track that was all the way around a certain area. We have these vines in this I live in a very kind of rural area, and the vines climb up different things, and they climbed up on the stop signs. Every summer it's the same thing. It looks very pretty, very, almost like something you would see in like a rich person's like a closed community where they want it to look really British.
Yes.
So they have the climbing vines and the bushes that are up against the walls of houses that are trimmed. But the vines now, even to this day, years and years, probably 7 or 8 years later, they still creep me out because I still think of the ruins.
Cool.
So that was really good world building, and when you read it, it's actually it doesn't feel that complex. It doesn't feel like he put a lot of work or effort into it. It feels very natural and on the page, and it's just one of those books that really just stuck with me. Obviously a lot of people know about Stephen King's Castle Rock. Mm-hmm. You've got, again, George R. R. Martin, his entire Song of Ice and Fire series. Right. His world is very, very in-depth and well built.
Right.
You've got a lot of worlds. Anything is possible. when you read if you've read Hunting a Corrigan's Blood, there is a lot in there, and it's something that, like with Fire in the Mist or Arhel, when there's these different worlds. The libertarian world.
Okay, that was Hunting the Corrigan's Blood.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That
Up yours,
yeah. I loved that world because it it was you trying to take an objective view on all of these different standpoints. And that is an amazing way to just look at world building is you can world build from anything. From somebody's political stance, from somebody's stance on smoking. You can world build on a single animal. You can look at a disease or a mutation that humans have in their bodies, and you can world build off of that. Make an entire world where these mutations are normal.
Right. Well, yeah, you figure. Fire in the Mist was my take on women versus men. And it preceded a lot of the anger and frustration and stuff that's going on in the world right now. But this is a problem. We need each other. Men and women need each other as human beings. And we cannot be cut off from one another and have anything good happen. So, back in 1991, I was looking at that and going, this is a problem. And that was my story.
Okay, so go ahead and wrap it up for our listeners. And then I guess we'll just give them some kind of actionable item, something that they can start on today.
Okay. Well, the actionable items this time are really simple. The first one is build a 5-minute world. And you just pick up the download from our download page. And
again, you don't have to give us an email or anything like that.
No,
this is completely free download.
Yeah, this is you don't have to sign up for anything. You just go in, you click, you download, you're done. And then the other thing is look at how your questions can enrich your story. Ask questions about tiny little details that you have put into your story and have ignored, because it's very easy to have your character walk past the alley and not look down it and say, what happened there 5 years ago? What happened there 5 minutes ago? What happened there 100 years ago? And how are they connected? But if you ask those questions, your world will repay you in ways you cannot even begin to imagine yet.
Awesome. And I think I am going to do the 5-minute workshop a little bit later today.
Oh, cool.
And I am going to add that, if that's cool with you, to the download page as well.
Absolutely do that, because
Cool.
because my demo's already in there.
Yeah, your demo's already in there.
Yeah, my demo is part of the workshop, and you get to see my right brain being a smartass, because that's what it does.
I hope mine is not a smartass today. I don't know how much more shit I can handle right now. But yeah, so we hope that this has been helpful. We would love to answer any questions that you might have. Again, if you do ask, we prefer that they are on the blog, alonewithinvisiblepeople.com.
It just makes it easier to find.
Yes, and if you would respond to the episode that you are, so if you have a world building question, ask on the world building episode, because it makes it a little bit easier to find when I'm going back in search for content. We've had a couple of questions on the Facebook page that I missed. We've had a couple of questions on, I believe, either Patreon or in the blog forums that we've missed. So it just makes it a lot easier, I guess, to concentrate it in one area. However, if you do have these questions in other places, we will eventually get to them. We also might not answer them right away. If they're more in depth, then we can give you a more in-depth answer. So we would love to answer your questions. Just have some patience with us, because we also are very, very, very busy. We have sent out only 3 emails with the ebooks, because everybody leaving a review has not been letting us know. Now, we know that a lot of you, including the 3 that I sent, a lot of you are leaving them because you appreciate what we're doing, you appreciate all of Holly's hard work. And while we definitely appreciate the fact that you guys are just leaving the reviews and the ratings to help us out, we want to be able to kind of show you that we appreciate your appreciation.
Yes, we want you to have the stories.
Yes. We want you to have them. So if you have left a review, please go ahead and email me at Rebecca@alonewithinvisiblepeople.com, and let me know that this review was from you, and I'll have to verify it, but then I can send you the 2 ebooks. Mine is called Good Bones. Mine is under 3,000 words, and Holly's is called Squick Studies, and I don't know how many words it is, but it turned out to be 27 pages on the
it's
PDF.
I think it's around 6,000, but I'm not entirely sure. So yeah.
And the 3 people that I ended up emailing didn't actually ask for the ebooks, but I literally knew them. So it just, and they were all 3 like, oh, you didn't have to send the ebooks. Yeah, we know we don't have to, but we just want to show you that we appreciate you.
And I have one other little thing to add before we go is we were going to do Kate and Bob as anonymous, but we want to know you guys. So if it's okay, we would rather just use your first name. So that, you'll get credit for the question and go, hey, that was me when you hear us.
If you're posting this in a public place, if you're posting this on something like Patreon where everybody can see your question, or the blog where everybody can see your question, we're going to use your first name because it's there for everybody to see. If you email us, and you... I will ask permission to use your name, but if you specifically say that you want it to be private, we will use a Kate and Bob. That's not a problem.
Right.
But we're just, if it's already visible for other people, we're going to use your first name because it was there already. So if you have any questions, like I said, go ahead and either email us or leave it on the blog. You can find us at Twitter or Instagram at AIARWIP. You can also use the search function on both of those apps. Look for Alone with Invisible People or Alone in a Room with Invisible People. And we also have a Facebook page, Alone in a Room with Invisible People. You can visit our website. It's also alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. We are on Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, and now, then I forgot to mention this earlier, but we are now on Spotify. Which is super awesome. So basically, I guess that's it for today. I hope you guys have a great day. Enjoy your writing. Holly?
Yes. Let us know how it goes. If you have tried something and it has worked out for you, one of the things that we have recommended, let us know, because we want to cheer along with you for the success that you're having in progressing with your writing, because this is what we want. This is what we're doing this for, is because we want you to succeed, and we want to be able to cheer when you do.
Yeah. And any help that we can provide at all, if it's been of help, we would love to know. We would love to see you succeed. So you can tag us on Instagram or Twitter, or you can just let us know on the blog that, it worked out for you, or you can always share what you created as well.
Yeah.
So, until next time, happy writing.
And we'll see you soon.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
You want to write, you love words, you love fiction, but you don't know where to start, or how to middle, or where to finish? I do. I'm Holly Lisle, and I've been doing this professionally since 1991. And I know how I did what I did to go pro, and I'll be happy to show you what I've learned. Start with my free 3-week flash fiction class at hollyswritingclasses.com.